Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As we introduced earlier, my name is Oses. I'm a professor at Johns Hopkins University. We're almost done for the day. It's the last session as far as I know. We'll wrap up quickly with just some of the deliverables that we've done with machine learning. I'm not going to go into great detail. A lot of it's been covered today in terms of how these models have been built. I'm happy to discuss later how any of those details if you're interested, but I just want to show off some of the modules we've created for sort of public consumption. So if everyone goes to AFLOW.org, I will also show it here on the screen so you can just follow along. And you go to AFLOW-ML. So here we have our portal for machine learning. This portal was developed largely before a lot of these Jupyter notebooks were created in Colab. So this is an easy portal for leveraging our machine learning models. I'm not going to discuss the details, and that's sort of the point. You don't need to know any of the details to use these models. So here we have three models that we put online. One is called properly labeled materials fragments. There's a description of what that means, how we construct our fragments, our descriptors for the machine learning model. The different models not only have different methods, but they also target different properties. So the first targets electronic and thermomechanical properties of a crystal. We'll walk through each of them. The molar fragment descriptor. This is based on chemical composition, and it targets vibrational properties, so vibrational free energies and entropies of a crystal. And then this one was discussed this morning, or was it this afternoon? Dr. Stanov, I think it was this afternoon. This works on chemical composition. You just enter a composition in, and you can get back the critical temperature for this superconductor. All right, let's start with the first one. So we have some instructions here on the right. What you need to do is you need to enter in a valid structure file, coordinate model. So we have this is in the VASP input file. This actually takes a number of different coordinate models. If you use Quantum Espresso, it takes that CIF file. There's a whole number of different, you can actually see them here. VASP5, Quantum Espresso, Abinit, FHI Ames, CIF, ELK, ABC car, and YCAR files. So it takes a number of different input files. Here we have a VASP input file. All you have to do is hit run prediction. And you'll see at the bottom, it's going to churn out. It's actually running the analysis on our servers. And in a few seconds, we should get back a series of properties. Okay. So you see for this composition, we have a whole suite of properties that I can calculate. We see at the top that it's predicted to be an insulator. We get a prediction for the band gap. Energy, and we get a number of thermomechanical properties. So bulk modulus, shear modulus, heat capacities, Debye temperature, thermal expansion. And we also include some details about how this model was trained. So these are calculation specific details, like the number of K points that we're generally trained on. These are sort of AFLOW standards, database standards for our calculations. But the point is, again, that a lot of these details have been obfuscated. You don't need to build the model. You don't need to code this up in Colab. It's very targeted for these properties. If we have time, I'll show some of the results of how we validated these models. But a lot of these properties have been heavily validated, even against experimental results. We have the MFD descriptor, takes the same type of input. So a structure file, and you hit run prediction. And it's a little faster, just really based on the composition. You can see that we get the heat capacity, vibrational free energy, and the vibrational entropy. And again, those details are in the relevant publications here. But again, these models have been validated. All those details are in the publication. Finally, we have the superconducting model here. This really just takes an input composition. That's how it was trained. This one takes a little bit longer to run. The model is much more complicated, and it actually does a series of two predictions. These are details that are relevant and or discussed in that paper, but we actually developed two models based on different thresholds of the of the critical temperature. If you remember from this afternoon, we had to split the data based on whether it was considered low TC or high TC. Based on that threshold, we've created two different models, and they work better for different types of materials. Again, those details are discussed in the publication. This takes about 30 seconds to run. But one of the other ideas that I want to highlight here, I guess the other major one, is that what's going on under the hood is very important. So this is just a web portal for our API. So this is actually submitting the input to our server, which is going to create all of these relevant descriptors for the model, and then it's going to return back a result. Now, this has been, so you see here we have the results for the superconducting critical temperature. So we have one model which is based on a separation threshold temperature at 5 Kelvin and then another at 10 Kelvin. Those are details for the paper. But what I was saying earlier was that these models they're actually leveraging an API under the hood. So you can actually use the API under the hood. We've written some scripts. I'm going to show you the collab that we've developed, and you can actually run the analysis right from the collab. So you don't need to do it from the portal, and you can actually script this, run this over a number of different materials. And a lot of these are actually being hit every day, many times a day. So if we go to the collab, I'll copy and paste this link into the chat. We have a nice visualization of what that means. So you take your structure, you're going to post it to the endpoint, which is our API. It's going to do the analysis. It's actually going to return back an endpoint for you to query to look if the result has been finished. Okay, so the analogy I use is that if you're ordering takeout food, imagine that you're in line for takeout food, you have to go and grab a number, okay? And so once you have that number, you go and constantly query, is my number up? Is my number up, right? Is that takeout food or the DMV? I was just at the DMV. So you're waiting for your number in line. And once your number is ready, then your result's ready. So here's the idea. We have our structure. We post it to the endpoint. And then we're going to get back a response immediately to that query. That response is going to be our number. We're going to be constantly asking, is that job finished? Okay, so we're going to have a loop. I'm going to show you in the script. We have a loop where we keep querying, is the job finished? Is the job finished? Because there's a queue. There's going to be many responses at a single time. Once that job's finished, we're going to get back a result. Okay, so let's take a look here. All right, so we're going to run through these examples together. If we go down to the CURL example, we'll hit enter here. Oh, actually, I'm going to make a copy. Let's save a copy into Drive. Open a new tab. Okay. So we hit the first button here. All that it's doing is it's grabbing an example structure from our API. Okay, so you can see that we printed out here. This is the same structure that we were using on the web. It's the example structure. Okay, so the first step of this process, the takeout food example, is we're going to post our structure to the endpoint. Okay, we're gonna submit our order or what we want to eat, let's say. Okay, and so we're gonna get back a response. We get an ID, which model that we queried, right? You can actually see that the model is actually part of the URL here. This is the model we want to query, the PLMF, the properly labeled materials fragment. And then we get an endpoint here. Okay, so prediction results and then some ID here. It's the same ID that we see here. Now, if we take that ID, you notice some time has passed already. So we take that ID and we paste it here, okay? And we now have our number for the food, right? So we're saying, is the order ready? Is the job being calculated? And it's a quick model. So you see here, we got our full suite of predictions. Okay, so pretty simple there. We have here, we've written a Python script for you to be able to leverage. This does a lot of the heavy lifting. So this does the first part of what I talked about in one step. You can see here that I set up the server and the model. There's some variables for that. We have the structure that we just saved. Okay. And then this piece of it submits it to the API and retrieves the endpoint. And now we're going to print the response. So this does a few of those steps in one go. And we get back our result here. Okay. So we're going to take that, we're going to copy it, and we're going to paste that URL here. Okay. I think I copied it correctly. Copy, paste. Okay. And we're going to, so this part of the script here does the second half of it. So it's going to retrieve the response, and it's going to see, you see here that we have a bunch of if statements. If it's pending, if it's started, if it failed, or if it succeeded, it's going to give you different responses. We're going to hit run, and you can see that it was run successfully. Finally, we have one big script that does all of this in one go. So we have the first pieces here. We set up the server and the model. We have the structure file. We encode that up into a variable to submit. And then we submit that structure file to the API, retrieve the response. And then we have this while loop here. Okay, and this loop is going to be doing the questioning of it's going to query the API and say, is my job finished? Is my job finished? And once it's finished, it's going to exit the loop and print the results. Okay. So the first pass, most of this runs very quickly. It's going to go through the pass, and it's probably going to get pending. Okay, so it's still waiting, and then it's going to sleep for about 10 seconds. So it's going to go to sleep, and then it's going to ask again in 10 seconds. You see, we already got the results, so it's very quick. We have a number of exercises here. We can take, I'll walk through them with you. The first exercise, so there's a little bit of a caveat here. So VASP at some point, VASP is an ab initio code, had changed its standard for the structure file. The model requires the latest iteration of that coordinate model. So you need to specify the species in the file as opposed to the pseudopotential file. So the first exercise is just to acknowledge that this is not a VASP-5 format and to create one. So we have magnesium oxide rock salt structure. In order to create a VASP-5 file, you need to just add a new line where we add the composition. So we add the different components of magnesium and oxygen, okay? So this line here before the 1,1, which specifies that there's one magnesium and one oxygen, this line here makes it a VASP-5 format. If we hit enter here, it writes out the file in sort of a temporary space for the Colab notebook. And then what we need to do is we want to run this and print out the results for this structure. So we're going to retrieve the PLMF properties. And we're going to hit run. And we have some questions. Is it metal or insulator? What's the bulk and shear moduli? So you see we have the response here. We could have targeted this response a little more specifically. So this is a JSON response. We could have said, give me just the metal insulator type. Okay, so that's part of the output here. You can see that we can if we just printed out this piece of it here, we would see that it's an insulator. And then we could also just target the bulk modulus. We could just target the shear modulus, but they're all just written there. So you have the answers you need for that question. The next part is to change the script a little bit to query a different set of properties. So instead of the electronic and thermomechanical properties, let's target the MFD model, which gives us the vibrational properties. So all you have to do is change this variable here to MFD, and the script does everything else for you. Okay, so we hit enter. And you get the relevant properties here, okay? You can do the same for the superconductivity model. I don't have an example here, but because that one takes a little longer, but you can do the same and you can query what the TC is for any of the compositions you want to submit. So with that, I will conclude the machine learning aspect of our session. If anyone has any questions. No, I don't see anything in the chat either. So I will, still sharing screen, right? We're gonna go through some